All right. I'm at the Red House with a new friend of mine, Seth Williams.
How you doing?
I'm glad to have you here. I'm glad to get the chance to learn more about you.
Absolutely. Thank you for inviting me out and looking forward to it, man.
Yeah, man, absolutely. First time I saw you play, songwriter session, songwriter kind of swap.
Yeah.
At Gas Hill.
Yeah, with Kyle Kelly and Bo James.
Yep, with Bo. And,
there you go.
representing. Yeah, and it was fun for me because it was a moment where, as odd as this sounds, sometimes in the local music scene or the North Carolina music scene, I see a lot of artists that are more like on the indie side, more on the old time side, like everything other than pure songwriter like stuff.
Right.
And I saw you guys and I was like, those are like my kind of blood right there.
The same cloth there.
Yeah, I really loved your performance. I really loved what you did.
Thank you, man. Thank you.
Where did your love of music begin?
Well, I think it would all start back with my mom's dad. We call him Papa Joe. He has always had guitars at the house, played bluegrass, and just as a young kid going over there, hey, we're going to go to Papa Joe's house and hang out. Whether you're cooking, grilling, or just, I was dropped off overnight and I had to go work yards and stuff with him with his lawn business or something. The evening would always end with, playing guitar, bluegrass. So I have early memories of just a lot of bluegrass music like that, and if it wasn't riding around with the parents and their kind of choices of music and things like that. That's a big staple into what started, because I took guitar lessons, but it was one of those things that as a kid it didn't stick. I even remember taking piano lessons. It was a very, very brief moment, like snap your fingers and it was over. Very brief.
Yeah.
And of course, I had all that. None of it stuck. But 8 years old playing guitar, of course, none of it stuck. But then turning around 12, 13, and we had some guitars in the house that I had never touched. And one day I just started picking it up. I had gotten one of those, it's a funny story. I got one of those Canjos. Have you ever seen it? It's like a tobacco stick with like a Mountain Dew can or something, and both the tops and bottom are cut out, and it's just one thin string through it. Mm-hmm. And I remember, I think we might have been up in Boone or something, but it was this old man in overalls, and he looked like Uncle Jesse from Dukes of Hazzard. That's what stuck out to me. And I'm talking to him, and he said, "Hey, son, you need one of these." And he picked it up, and I remember it clear as day. It was a Mountain Dew can on a stick with a string, and he gave me this card, and I think Dad spent like $15 on it. And this card had to play like Happy Birthday, Mary Had a Little Lamb, just simple stuff, just 1, 2, 3s that was on the fretboard. And one of the things he showed me, this newspaper, it was a banjo player. He's like, this boy just played somewhere like out in Nashville, something like that. And he told me, he said, every one I've sold to, I've had a story come back where they started and they become like a big time musician. And man, that was I remember that day so clear. And he handed me that thing, and the first thing I did was got in the car, and I know probably Mom and Dad were annoyed as hell by the time, 30 minutes into the drive, because I'm back there just banging on this thing, trying to figure it out. And sure enough, that led to me picking up the guitars around the house, going back over to Papa Joe's, and him being like, well, you know anything about bump strum? I was like, bump strum? Yeah, you got to have that bump strum in there, man. You ain't playing. You just going to be whacking away on that thing. So that's all that foundation come in from just that basic understanding of, and that the Canjo thing, it contributed a lot to my understanding of it, because it's just the simple, it wasn't too big to tackle. So It was just the simple things and learning a fretboard. And so when it got to, well, you got your chord bases, now let's learn some scales. All that kind of circled back on itself when I was looking, and it's just like, well, you got half step, whole step, half step, whole step and a half. You just go up and down the fretboard. And so that guy, I can't remember his name, but I know he looks like Uncle Jesse from Dukes of Hazzard. To think to that guy, this is all his fault.
I remember a Canjo. I had one sitting around here for a couple of years, and I don't remember what happened to it. I don't remember why I got it, where I got it. But, yeah, I had one for a while. And I think I remember the scale was messed up on it. Wouldn't only play, I think because there was only one scale on it, and the way that mine at least was spaced out, it wasn't a minor scale, so it would only play like a major scale.
Yeah, that was the good thing about it. Anywhere you landed, you
Yeah.
sounded, you had it halfway decent. You sounded pretty decent on it, because it's like, and that, I think that gave me a confidence, because it's like, well, it wasn't 6 strings and 45 frets up and down the fretboard where every other note sounds wrong. It's like, no, it gets you that confidence of like, of understanding a musical ability to a point. You know, you can play it and it's not gonna sound right, you know, or wrong, you know. So that helped out a lot starting out.
So Canjo and bluegrass being
Yeah.
the foundation for everything for you?
That's where it took off, and then from there, having friends that also played music and things. But we had an antique mall in Madison, North Carolina, and around that time I got a couple scales down from the pentatonic scale and my basic chord shapes, and finally learning like the B7s and bar chords. You know, finally getting to where when I strummed it, it wasn't all buzzy. So I was around that time, and we had these open mic kind of Saturday, Sunday open mic bluegrass jams there, and got to meet a lot of guys and doing stuff like that. And that's where I first sang a song up in front of people. I'd sing to myself and sing to mom and dad a little bit, but nothing too serious. And I think I played Marshall Tucker, Can't You See? And I played that up in front of them for the first time. And that's where it went into, well, maybe I need to start learning more cover songs, maybe even writing my own songs, and going from there. And that around that time, God, I was listening to like Led Zeppelin, super, super heavy. So, you know, I wanted the humbucker sound. Mm-hmm. I basically, if I could have afforded it, I probably would have went and got like a rhinestone dragon jumpsuit like Jimmy had.
Yeah.
I'd have had the whole thing. I was such a big Led Zeppelin fan at that time, so all those heavy, heavy riffs like that were really interesting to me. So that on top of the bluegrass, and then learning country songs to keep up with the open mic thing, it was just I don't know if it's a good mix or a bad mix or what, but it just got all thrown in there at the same time, you know.
Yeah.
But
You remember much of that? How old were you when you first performed?
oh man, I had to be. It wasn't long. Probably 14. Like when it started really taking it serious, booking a show, you know, playing your local coffee shop or something like that. 14, 15.
You remember that for some of those early performances and what it felt like?
Yeah, it was nerve wracking. It was. I learned self confidence a lot, and one of the first things you kind of learn is you think the whole room is zeroed in on you, which is nothing further from the truth. Like when you get up there and there may be 4 or 5 people paying attention, those people in that bar and restaurant talking amongst themselves. It's that. So it almost, in a way, when you seriously just take a moment and look out and go, well, some of these people aren't even paying attention. So it relieved a little bit. And as I got to playing and getting that route, the fear of, you know, oh gosh, everybody's gonna be seeing me. Oh, they're not gonna be seeing me. Well, I need to get their attention.
Yeah.
Now then it flips. Then you want their attention in a way. You know, you want to grab their attention. So you got to play those cover songs and mix in your original songs and really grab them. But those first few gigs, it was that learning process. But luckily I had a little bit of a background structure as far as getting in front of people, because I played with my church. I had a good friend, Luke Jones, that played guitar, and he showed me some stuff like that. And just getting up in front of people was an easier process, because I had done it in small increments up until, you know, booking that show.
Yeah. So then you finally decided you were going to step into the world of songwriting.
Yeah.
Was that a fluid evolution, or was it full of effort?
It was a little bit of both, because of that friend I mentioned, Luke Jones. He wrote songs for the church, and he had a couple rock and roll songs. Obviously, he can't play with the church band, so me and him would get together and we would play his songs, and he would encourage me to write and all that stuff. So with all that, I guess, like bluegrass background rock and roll stuff, it was more rock and roll leaning when I would write, but it was very simple verse, chorus, verse kind of stuff. But I don't know, I was trying to find that way. I remember writing something that sounded like Johnny Cash, and then it would be like, well, that's not no good. And then I'd write like a Rolling Stone sounding song, and it's like, well, that's not so good. But I don't know, that I was I was encouraged by a good friend that I was inspired by to write. So I wanted to be like him in a way, be like, all right, that's good enough to play with Luke. You know, that's good enough to me and him sit down. And when he started to be like, man, that's a good one. That's got some good stuff in there. It's like the encouragement from there went on. So, you know, just trying to, and I guess I still am. I'm switching it up every day, but trying to find that voice and that vein that, you know, it comes out on paper easy. It comes out, which, you know, that's a whole thing in itself. But trying to write, I learned real quick that you can't write about it. There's some songwriters that can, but I can't. I can't write like this fantasy stuff that didn't really happen to me or I'm not really inspired by. So it took me a minute, but to figure out to go write from your experiences or write by things you're influenced by, that I really started to zero in on that, because when you're up on stage, you know, at least for me, I don't want to play anything that's fictitious when it comes to like even a cover song. It's like, well, this is not a song I'd even listen to or whatever. You know, I don't want to play anything that feels fictitious or lying to the crowd or this, that, and the other. I want it to feel like a genuine thing, because it feels like it's just, you know, when you get up there and you play a song that you don't feel quite confident about, or you just wrote to write or have filler. I want something that feels like when I get up there, it almost gives you a confidence boost to go like, well, this is my story, or I've seen these things, or I love or hate these things. You know, you have that in your song, and you have a bit of yourself to fall back on in those songs and sing to people. So, but I don't know, man.
Did you try a few of those songs? I'm guessing you tried a few of more like the fantasy realm, or the realm that didn't have anything to do with you.
Right, yeah, and I found out real quick. It's like this. That's where that disingenuine thing is like, man, that's not me, man. That's not me. I'm trying to sound like that Led Zeppelin thing, or I'm trying too hard. And then when I just let the actual just flow come out and be like, well. Or you're driving down the road or in the shower or something where you're idle mind, and then that line comes to you. It's like, oh man, that's cool. Let's write it down. And that's when I started to realize, okay. I think Tom Petty put it best. He's like, man, it's like when you write a song, sometimes the heavens open up and you only have a certain window of time before it closes back. It's like a magical thing that happens, and you just gotta capture it. And I can't tell you how many times I've pulled off the road to jot something down or put it in my phone or sing a melody line, and then go back to the house, and then within a couple minutes I got a verse, chorus, and something. You know, there's something there to build off of. So.
Yeah, I was listening to something recently. I can't remember who the musician was, but it was talking about his commitment to writing and how. It was kind of a common rule, a commonly known thing among his family. Like, if all of a sudden we're in the middle of dinner or middle of a conversation, if I just walk away and go into my writing room, it's because that's how, like, the window opened up. You know?
Gotta catch it. You gotta catch it. It's like Greg Allman said, he wrote Midnight Rider within 30 minutes to an hour that night. He wrote it with charcoal on something, and it, bam, there it was. There was a song, and luckily I've had as a songwriter, if I had a couple of those experiences where within 30 minutes the song's written, you might have to go in, polish a few things, and it's done. And I've had songs that's taken me a year and a half, and then it's finally like, but you just have to, those moments come, and you can't push it as a songwriter. I think that's happened a lot now, and that's how, when you get into that fictitious thing of, you know, especially what's happening on the radio now, it's just all, we can talk about it all day long. You hear everybody talk about it. It's just something that sells.
Yeah.
It's that, and like I never want to be like that, and so I always want it to be real. I want it to be me, and when you know it's going to be you, because it come from that moment in time when those heavens opened up and you just had to jot it down. So
yeah, man.
That's a song to me. You know, that's the song. You know, not getting in a I saw an interview. I keep mentioning other artists, but saw an interview with Hank Williams Jr. It's like, I'm going to get together with 5 writers, and we're going to have a writing session. Like, a writing session? What the hell is that? Well, you going to wait until the heavens open up and then a song? He's like, man, I get out on my boat, I go fishing. And he's like, he sang a little line of something, and he was like, oh, got to get that. Got to jot that down. It's like, man, that's how, I think that's how people connect to an artist more than, you know, some
Song factory,
exactly. That's how, because I think even if you're not a songwriter, you have those moments of clarity in your day-to-day life, about situations or however else. We all experience that bit of relief or that thing opening up, and you got to capture it.
Absolutely, man. If I was a real journalist, somebody would have told me, "Hey, spend some time here." I got to see your set, and I remember that night being very immersed in your songs.
Oh man, thanks.
Since then, I have not had the forward thinking enough to like research your music enough to like put you on the spot today.
I hear you.
So what I'd like to do is just ask you if you can tell me about some of the songs you've written that you think sort of capture your story in ways that you value, ways that you are proud of, or whatever.
Man, one song that it's an older song. I played it last night actually at the Power and Sound pre-party. I closed with it. It's one about my dad and just talking about growing up around his racing career and his kind of work ethic, just with him in general. And it's called 6 Seconds, 6 Days, and it's got a lot of things in it that are kind of specific, where if you're an automotive person, you'll connect with it, because that's what I grew up around and seen. So it wasn't anything on a Thursday, Friday night to hear a 700 horsepower race engine crank up at 3 o'clock in the morning, load it up on the trailer, be at the track at 8, break it, come back, work on it all week, do the same thing over and over again. So just that drive of wanting to go out and compete and all that, and just being around my dad and some of the things I learned. But 6 Seconds, 6 Days, which was recorded with Whiskey Foxtrot, that was on the album Turn Off the Headlights, or no, Hard Lines and Headlights, and you can find that one. But that's a song that is, it's got that heavy stuff. It's got a bit of that culture wall-ish, that kind of, I don't know, that Southern Gothic. That's what a good friend of mine referred to some stuff like Southern Gothic thing. It's deep and dark. But then I have songs like Carolina, where it's just talking about going out playing music, being out of state, and then as you're a musician yourself, you could probably imagine there's nothing else you want when you're 5-6 days into a trip and playing music, that you just want to lay your head back down in your own bed, chill out. And so there's songs like that where it's kind of upbeat and stuff. But I don't know, like I said, I touched on a lot of different genres, because that's what I grew up around listening. So I think it comes out subconsciously through whether it be a riff or lyrically,
Yeah, I mean, this is a realm that, I do my best to try to learn from other people about, and it's always difficult because there's not, like, the magic of what you do, the magic of what songwriters do doesn't require really any explanation or justification or whatever.
Yeah.
But still, there's this fun thing about, wondering, what your perspective is. And part of that might be, what do you think, as you were talking about sort of identifying the difference between a song that's really you versus a song that's like some other persona or some other nonsense.
Yeah.
What do you think some of those attributes are that are a part of your approach to art, that are a part of what you do?
I think for me, like, as I mentioned, that song 6 Seconds, 6 Days, it's got a lot of mentioning of certain automotive aspects and stuff. And I try to get as creative with a word and describing a situation, because in fact, me and Ivan Yarber, he's another guitar player and my sister's boyfriend, we were talking, and sometimes it's hard to explain, but when a song is being listened to, or I'm playing, or however, or whichever side you're on, whether you're a viewer and a listener or you're playing it, there's a movie in my head that's playing. And it's like, no matter what, whether it's a song I've written, a cover song, or I'm listening to it, the same movie happens with the same song. Like, each song has its own pictures and things. So when I write, I try to give that person that perspective of like, here's the movie that's playing in my head. Here's what I'm seeing. How descriptive can I be in portraying that image, and give them their own image of what's playing in their head, to give them more of a, because I think that's what I connect with when I listen to a song, and what catches me is sometimes it's my own thinking that puts a cool image in my head. It's like, I want to see that image again. So I listen to that song again and just get that, and that comes out in artwork and things like that. So it's for me, it's putting as descriptive of a picture in someone's head, and that's kind of how I like to approach it, you know.
Oh yeah, you're speaking my language.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah, I mean, I so prefer and so appreciate like the visual aspect of this stuff. I've not actually heard anybody, I don't think, describe it as a movie that they're seeing, but I think that's like a really perfect description of it.
You remember those the Viewcaster viewfinder, like you look through it and it's got the pictures on the wheel and you go and then the next pit and then you see the net. That's kind of like what happens, but every time that verse or a different chorus comes around, a big thing plays, and then just a scene like of that certain thing plays, and then the chorus comes back around and bam, that scene of the chorus, and then boom. It's honestly how I see it, and that's how I like remember songs sometimes.
Yeah.
Is I'm playing it, and I can't tell you how many times I've had like my heart almost skip a beat going, oh gosh, I don't know the lyric. Or like, oh man, I can't remember. And I'll play the previous little thing in my head. It's like, all right, I was here by the riverbank, da-da-da-da. Oh shoot, I'm crossing this. Okay, all right. And then I just start singing about the image that's in my head, and I'll go, oh yeah, no kidding, that's what it was.
I know exactly what you're saying, man. I tell people a lot, if you knew what insanity went on in my head while I'm performing.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
You wouldn't believe it.
And that goes back to, you know, you're worried about, well, what's the crowd like? How did you learn? Man, I don't mean it in a rude way. The last thing I'm thinking about is what that person thinks about me or how I look. And this, that, and it. Man, I'm in here. I'm in here, and I'm trying to cast out what's in here to everybody in the room. And that I feel like as a musician, that's your job. You know, that's if you're a creative person and you've written this story and you have that movie in your head or however it is for you, that's your job as the musician and artist and the creative person to show everybody else and to get your point across. And I think that's a thing that's completely and utterly lost with all that commercial stuff or anything. And you can tell, I mean, there's a lot of new music and genres that I love, and I like those things, and because it feels real and it feels like that artist is doing that job. And for me, I feel like I got a pretty good radar of that person's just up there for a paycheck, or that person's up there because a person in a suit told them to be.
Yeah.
Or there's a person in a suit that told this person this is gonna sell. Like, I can't do it. I disconnect quick. Yeah. I disconnect real quick. But when I see that person as someone who does that job, when I see that person doing that job, I'm like, I like that guy. I like that girl. I like this band. I like what they're doing. It's like, you know, you can. For me, I feel like I got a pretty good radar of like that. That's cool. I like what they're doing.
That line that you're describing is so visible, and it's interesting because we know that exists, and we know that there's like there's a decision you can make as an artist if you're given the option. You know, if the industry sort of opens that door for you to say, all right, like now you can be one of these artists that kind of prioritizes mass appeal in this way, that sacrifices certain what we might think of as like levels of integrity or something.
Right, yeah.
And it's kind of sad. It's kind of sad knowing this about the industry and being on this side of it and being on the side that's like, you know, like loving people like Towns or like Guy Clark or whatever, and kind of knowing the fate of those guys.
Yeah.
Even John Prine, like knowing the limit that is like on his level of commercial success. Yeah. With his level of talent compared to like those Song Factory performers that we.
Right. Yeah. And you know, I don't back. And my thing is, if somebody worked hard and they got into that level where they take that on, it's like and I know of them, or I've kind of seen their journey or know of their journey of they come from that camp of working hard, grinding it out, and getting it there. Man, I am a full ambassador of taking every opportunity you can to level up, to get to that point where you want to go. And it's cool because I feel like I've seen that with like 49 Winchester here recently. Yeah. I mean, I played a couple shows with them and hung out with those guys. They're the realest dudes I've ever seen, and now they're out there playing the Grand Ole Opry. They're over there in Europe. You see somebody like Jive Mother Mary, who's another band who's just grinded it out, and now they're selling out places out of the country, and it's incredible. They're, I fully support that, but. When I was talking about that kind of corporate thing, I wasn't talking about people like that.
Sure,
I'm talking
sure.
about the dude that comes up there in chains with a big old chain on, and he's talking about his truck and this, that, and the other. And when you're all right, when you call yourself a country artist and you're doing this stuff,
Yeah.
I disconnect.
Well, a thing about
like
when we talk about real experiences, I keep harping on this. I've said this probably 4 times on this show, and I will say it until someone understands how important it is. I was listening to Jason Aldean talking on a radio interview.
Yeah.
And they were like, so Jason Aldean, I don't know what made them ask him this, but they were like, do you mow your own yard? And he was like, no, I pay somebody to do that. And I'm like, you have a song about a tractor. Like,
I know, man. Like, come on.
It's just it's just so glaringly hilarious to put on the persona of like farm boy. But not mow your own damn yard.
Yeah. It's like, do you know your deck height? What do you do for the backyard? Do you do that for the front yard too? It's like, man, come on, man. Golly, you can't tell me the difference between a Kubota and a John Deere. Damn.
It is funny.
You bush hog that over there? Golly, yeah, I know, and I think that goes back to that. The writing of the genuine thing and putting that movie in your head, because that it's unfortunate, but Jason Aldean will never be. I will say never, but people like that, I feel like have stepped out so far where if they genuinely tried, it's going to take a lot to get back to that point,
Yeah.
And I always try. That's just staying true to what that is, and I've got some songs that are kind of wild and out there and that are different, but it's that creative thing in my head that if I didn't get it out, I would probably go crazy and insane. So, there's some stuff that is off the wall and it sounds crazy, but it's, like I said, just the mix of influences and the things that I listen to that just subconsciously or consciously just come back out into this. And now back to that movie thing, that's, I feel like it's just your job to put that movie and creative thing in other people's head and project that out.
Yeah, what I love about that too is like the visual component. Like, I don't believe that this was always. I think it's waned and waxed throughout music. Like sometimes music has been visual in the way that lyrics have been written, but when I think of stuff from like the 20s and stuff, you get a lot of description. You get a lot of like. Dancing, cheek to cheek, like it's a description of sort of a fact. Mm-hmm. It's like a description of a fact, but it seems like since the '60s and like kind of since Bob Dylan, since folk music became part of the culture, that I don't know if that was when it happened, but all I'm saying is like in our genre of music, like scenery being part of it and like small minute details being part of songwriting, I think makes songs way more cinematic and beautiful and visual and stimulating in the mind.
And because like I said, I will listen to a song and I'll get 3/4 of the way through, but then something will be said that will project that image, or like an unforgettable, just how descriptive, or even just the way something was played, and that will make me return to that song. So I try to incorporate as many of those moments and those aspects into an original song, whether it be from guitar or a lyric, or how even pulling back and letting the drums do something, or letting this piano part play. It's all about, I hate keep repeating myself, it's all about playing that movie and what is best for the song and getting the idea and the creative thing across to the viewer and the listener.
Yeah. How many times, like once you get that thing written and it's done? Well, first before I ask that, is it done? Like, is it like, like some people are like, oh, a song's never done. Some people are like, once I write the last word, I don't change it anymore. Where do you fall on that?
I guess I'm on the fence about that one, because, like I said, I've got songs that taken a year and a half to write, and I got songs that'll take 30 minutes, and once the pen hits the table, it's over.
Gotcha.
But there's some songs where, back to that, making sure it's getting that point across, I'll be like, wait, can I say something different here? It's like, yes, I'm describing this. That's an okay line, but is there something that's affecting this line that is up here that maybe if I change this thing, what happens here? You know, there's some aspects you can do to ensure that it is doing the job and getting that creative thing across. So always make sure that, you know, it's not finely polished or nothing, or it's just that I'm happy with it, and that yes, this is the best thing I can say, or yes, this is the best thing I can play, whether it be the most complicated riff and solo you ever heard, or it's that one chord to go like, you know, I need to pull back and go here, or I got too much going on in this line, let me just erase, start over, or just take out a couple words, or add, you know, there's little things I like to do to make sure that the song is tuned and as good as it can be. Mm-hmm. It don't have to be complicated or complex. It's just like, what's the best it can be? So I always try to ensure that.
Okay. So once you've got that movie kind of written in your mind, how long of a process are you looking at before you feel like it's memorized? What does that look like for you?
That's one of those things that happens off the bat. So it might be that when it's first written, it's that movie playing in my head. It might be a similar scene, but that scene might change with the word change or the riff or something. So it changes and it doesn't. That movie in my head for each original song. But the big aspect from when it changes sometimes is I can have it the structure, the bones, the frame of it laid out. And then I take it to the guys, Mitch Hull and Brad Cardiel, their bass player and drummer.
You play with Mitch?
Mitch Hull, yes, sir.
Oh, shit.
I love Mitch, man.
Okay.
He's the one. Unfortunately, Mitch, hope you're well by this comes out. But yeah, he broke his hand. Yeah.
That's Mitch.
That is the
realize
Mitch.
that.
Yeah, man. So, but when the song is taken to them or taken to the full band aspect, sometimes that's when some big changes can come, because especially musically, obviously, and the movie may change, or that image may change in my head a little bit, because Brad Cardiel, since the Whiskey Foxtrot days, which is a crazy story how I met him, we put out a thing on Craigslist of all places looking for a bass player, and Brad Cardiel showed up, and man, ever since then I've been like this musically, friendship wise, everything with Brad. And I trust his full 100% musical friendship, whatever opinion of anything. And he's probably one of the top-notch musicians I could ever work with. And when I get a song to him, I'm not afraid when he goes, all right, let's dissect this thing. You know, he'll take it all apart and look at everything, because that's just the way his mind works. And I'm so glad I got somebody like him in my corner, because I think that needs to happen. Much like you're building a car, or you're building a bike, or whatever you're building, you put it together and take it all back apart, refine it, put it back together. Mm-hmm. And so that's kind of what we do with a song when we get to the full band, and that's when some things can seriously flip around or change or take out or add to. And when it gets to there, that's when it gets exciting and things can develop, and that's when we really focus on, okay, what's the best this song can be? What needs to happen with this song, or what doesn't need to happen now? So when it gets to that point, I start to get excited, and because I trust both those guys' opinions, full 100%. I'm not afraid for them to take it 100% apart and just go, all right, you know what? This doesn't need to happen. I'd be like, all right, cool, let's go.
You know, Speaking of your experience and knowledge with like something like cars, and the way that I've learned today that that's a part of that also is a realm of creativity, I think, and creativity within the confines of competence too, I guess.
Right.
Like, you know what you're doing. You've learned through this process.
So I don't know what I'm doing. Well, it's a lot of trial and error.
Trial and error.
A little touch and go.
That's, I mean, still creative, and the bravery, I guess, involved with that.
Right.
Would you say, I'm reading Rick Rubin's book right now. Have you read that yet?
No, I haven't.
You really should. It's not just you. I mean, I would recommend it to most artists, because it's something pretty special. he talks. It's called The Creative Act, and it's a lot about kind of a lifestyle of creativity. And I get the sense from you, maybe that creativity extends beyond music for you. You can tell me if that's right or not. But
Oh, absolutely, man. Absolutely.
where all is it for you? Is it everywhere?
It a little bit everywhere. I grew up with my uncle. He was an artist, so family gets-togethers. I would always be seeing what he was painting, and my grandma on my dad's side, his mom, she can paint and do anything from clay to painting on those old cheese wheel baskets, like the big boxes. She would paint and have like these beautiful flowers and ornate looking things. And so going over to their house as a kid, piece of paper, crayons, whatever would come out and start drawing and whatnot. And so ever since I could hold a pencil or pen, I've been drawing and painting. And a lot of that contributes to those movies that you see in your head, whether it be like, I feel like this is a audio thing that needs to come out in a song, or no, I need to get this across and show people that this is what's in my head, or create that thing that's in your head. So I've been seriously painting for the last maybe 5 or 6 years, and finally getting to the point where I feel confident enough like to develop prints and things like that.
Prints.
Yeah, and luckily, sister being a photographer, she can take high quality, good pictures of the actual original, send them off, have them printed, and available on my website. Actually, on my music website, jswmusicnc.com.
Okay, so you're stepping into the world of visual art as well.
Yeah.
Any other, like, do you do any other forms of writing or any other creative outlets?
It's really just music and art for right now.
I mean, you seem kind of fashionable, and you got a cool band.
Fashionable? Yeah. Well, yeah.
I like your boots.
Oh, thanks, man. I think they're Ariat. I got another pair of Laredos at the house. But, yeah, I mean, coming from that, like I mentioned, that era of listening to Led Zeppelin and the late 60s, early 70s stuff, if I could just buy a whole warehouse of just Levi bell-bottom jeans, I think I'd be happy for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
I can't find no decent boot-cut jeans for nothing, especially in my height. But
yeah.
I like all that old vintage stuff when it comes to fashion stuff. I like that.
Tell me about that.
Oh, gosh.
I mean, obviously you like Led Zeppelin, but...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, why vintage clothes?
I don't know. Well, I think, again, going back to that thing of it's your job to project what's in your head to a crowd and be as creative and get a point across. I think it comes back into those interests and things that interest me. Is that's what those dudes were wearing. I like, I want to look like Hank Williams Jr., whatever, mixed with Led Zeppelin and Black Sabbath and all that stuff. I want to take everything that influences me, and like you have to me at least, you got to establish some type of visual thing that goes along with your sound. So,
yeah.
I mean, that's what I grew up around cowboy boots and jeans and belt buckles, but also, I'll wear a vest that's got a Black Flag or Black Sabbath big logo on the back of it or something,
Yeah.
So just mixing it all together and doing that, and that's just the stuff that interests me and what I like. And I think it's good step out in the world and feel confident in what you're in or whatever. That's a big part of it too. I don't want to feel like a dweeb on stage.
Right.
I don't think nobody does.
No, definitely not. Do you think that visual aspect of it, which also sounds like a creative outlet for you, do you think that adds to the folks' ability to kind of be immersed in that movie?
I think so. I mean, I would hate to go. I mean, I think of it like this. I'd hate to go see Led Zeppelin back in mid '70s, and then Jimmy Page wasn't in his Zoso suit. The big dragon suit. It'd kind of be disappointing. So, or to not see Ozzy Osbourne wearing some big giant bat wing looking thing on stage. And he's. So,
I've never thought about that, but if Ozzy came out in like sweatpants, yeah.
That
would be distracting as hell.
Right, yeah. So I think that's an important thing, which luckily I learned that from my mom. Like, thank goodness, because she grew up, obviously being 15, 16, I couldn't go and book my own shows and play at the bar by myself. I had to have somebody, at least help me get there and do that stuff. So she would look at me and go, hey, you might ought to think about a little something better than just your regular little tennis shoes and this, that, and the other on stage. It might help out. And it is as crazy as it is, it does help. You get it. I think it's, I was talking to a friend the other night about this. I think it helps back to that mental thing of stepping on stage and doing your job. You're putting on that stuff that helps you perform, and you get in that mental state. I think it's just a part of, because I got work clothes, you got day-to-day clothes, but you got those certain shirts that you save up for that show or whatever. It's like, I can't get that one dirty. I can't be working in that shirt. So when I put on that shirt, you put on that thing, it's like you're suited up. You're there to do the job. Would you trust your banker if he come in sweatpants and a Grateful Dead T-shirt?
Right.
I'm not going to trust that guy with my money.
Right.
Am I going to do the same thing when that guy steps up on stage and he's about to say, hey, I'm going to play da-da-da-da-da songs? Like, no, man, I don't know about all that. It's like, look the part, dress for the job you want. So I think it kind of comes back to that, But again, I've seen Billy Strings play in giant Elton John style sunglasses, and that's a part of it too. It's just a part of, it's a part of owning, I guess, your brand, owning your brand.
Yeah, he's figured out something different because he can
tapped into something incredible. I love that dude. That's something I'd go and I'd get on a motorcycle and follow Billy Strings everywhere. I'd go see him everywhere, dude. That's something I'd love to do. But that's somebody who I'm definitely influenced by.
He is such an interesting artist because he is in that world of acoustic music and even bluegrass, but can dress like a hippie Deadhead, can put on a show like a Deadhead. It's such a hard to explain combination of tastes. It
is. I think for somebody that hasn't seen him, if you have the opportunity and you like him, go see him, because it's the experience of listening and the experience of seeing is totally different things with him, especially now where he's in the ability to put on big light shows or play big outdoor amphitheaters or play those small big. I saw him at the Greensboro Coliseum.
Right.
I mean, that was an experience, and to where you're used to going somewhere like Greensboro Coliseum and seeing a big band up on stage and giant big speakers, this, that, and the other. Man, it's like your local bluegrass band. It's the upright bass, mandolin, banjo, and Billy. I mean, that's what's up there, and it's a massive wall of sound that's created. And it's just incredible, man. A Billy Strings show is incredible.
He's another one of those people that it's, when you talk to people, I've talked to people who have said, oh, you're a songwriter or whatever. You're an acoustic musician. You're not the type of person who is going to have a certain level of success. And then you look at him or you look at Tyler Childers and you're like, fuck off. Like,
yeah, man.
Look at what is possible. And
I don't know, Cody Jinks, all those cats, man. And then somebody like, man, talk about a show. Luckily I got to see him before the big, I guess what you would say, the pop-off. I don't want to sound like a pompous asshole or nothing, but I got to see him as he was turning into this guy was Paul Cawthon. Got to see him in Charlotte.
I'm actually not familiar with him.
Dude, Paul Cawthon, man, check him out. He is an incredible artist. He is Johnny Cash mixed with Elvis, mixed with, oh my gosh, it's incredible. His show is awesome. I got to see him in Charlotte. I can't remember the venue, but they had 2 stages, and he played on the smaller stage, and that room was packed with people. And he played that one, and man, now he's just out there, of course, exploding and playing all over the place. But for those that don't know Paul Cawthon, check him out. That's a show. That's another one of those. Listening is one thing, seeing is another with him. And he's one of those. He puts on his outfit, he puts on his work clothes, and goes up there and does the work and does his job. Man, he come out in a rhinestone-looking suit thing with lightning bolts all over it and sunglasses and the big hat and man, he was on it. He's somebody that is on it.
It's like a big movement, it seems, in art, and I don't know if it's in art, but in the Americana, roots, grass worlds, country, alt country, it's like the pageantry of it seems to have increased just recently, and in a pretty cool way. I mean, I kind of like all that shit. I kind of like what everybody's doing.
I dig that. Yeah, I like that. When somebody's got a look and you can identify with, like Charlie Crockett. I mean, you see him, that big old 10-gallon hat, and then you'd see him playing in like a New York substation. That visual is just a cool looking. It's just a cool looking thing, and I think it's a part of putting that with something that you can't forget, an image that will stay with people.
Yeah. Hey, girl.
Oh, you can have some energy drink if you want it.
She don't need it. She's energized. Hey, girl. Any other artists come to mind that you can say that you're digging right now?
Well, definitely two bands that are influencing my sound, I guess you could say right now, is a band called Truck Fighters and another band called King Buffalo. Truck Fighters is an old, I won't say old, but super heavy stoner doom type band from Sweden, and they've been around for a little while, but man, there's somebody I can drive down the road and listen to nonstop. They got those long instrumental sounding songs, about 9-10 minute songs, and I love stuff like that where the guitar's fuzzed out, compressed, and feeding back, and you just had to have a ride it like a wild bull kind of thing. I love songs like that. And then a band that me and Brad and I have been really getting into is King Buffalo, where they create these more soundscape type deals, more like festivals kind of sound stuff, where it's just a big soundscape and lots of echo used, and like I said, that guitar that's just on the verge of exploding, and you having to ride the distortion wave on it. But bands like that I've been really getting into, and have seeped into that creativity thing of when I pick up a guitar, it's like sometimes that sound just starts to come out, and you just take that pedal and maybe turn it up a few more notches, or you take that bass tone on the amp and go, well, see how heavy it can go, So I've been getting into some stuff like that, and some of those lyrics are a little more fantasy like, but with that, it kind of opens the door to, for me at least, when I don't try to, but when you write songs that are that heavy, I'm still putting in those influences and things like that from my own experiences, but I feel like there's a little more openness of creativity and doing that thing of just the descriptive thing. How descriptive can I get with it?
Yeah.
And I feel like that's a realm I really like being in right now, is that kind of stuff. But yet again, I'll rip around on a baritone full blast distortion, and then I'll put that down and pick up a Martin guitar and start playing like Tony Rice riffs. So, there's that ping pong thing of back and forth and just going all over the place. But that's the kind of stuff I've been diving into recently.
When I first saw your set, or I guess I should say, I mean, as a person, as a music lover with an eclectic taste, it doesn't surprise me. But for the outside looking in, it wouldn't shock me if somebody was surprised that you have a taste for like heavy music.
Oh, absolutely, man. Absolutely.
Does that go back pretty far?
It kind of goes back into that, that young and rebellious type of thing of wanting, because me growing around bluegrass, sometimes it gets a little monotonous. There is a monotonous thing to bluegrass, so it's like, what's totally opposite of it? Oh, bands like AC/DC, Black Sabbath, and all those great gods of the 70s and 80s, So, and Jimi Hendrix, obviously, back in the 60s when it all started to blossom out. But, yeah, so having those kind of early foundations as far as the heavy stuff to go and listen to, I dig all that stuff. And then, I don't know, man. I love driving and listening to music. That's something I really love. And those bands I mentioned, I think it just comes from just, thank God for like Spotify Discover Weekly, because half the bands I'm into now would never know of because of those stations and stuff. And I think it just, I started listening to heavier stuff, and then it just piled onto itself. So I've got like 5-6 years worth of super heavy stuff I've been listening to now that has seeped into my playing, because I'm just driving around in my van just blasting that stuff as loud as my little portable speaker on the dash can go. So, and that's what some friends and I listen to, and we get around, we show each other songs. Last night we were they're like, man, have you heard this band? It's like, no, look at this album cover, and it's a big wizard on top of a mountain with a staff, and he's fighting off a dragon holding a guitar, some wild looking stuff, and we love that. I love that kind of stuff. So, you know, and sometimes we were just like, I love the album cover art, and I had to listen to the song, and I think that goes back. Visuals.
Yeah.
Giving the people, you know,
consistency,
looking the part, doing the job, and I think that comes with album cover stuff too, you know.
She's having fun. Yeah, I think you're dead on, man. And it also makes me think about your van. Like, your van is a part of that. It seems like maybe not an intentionally artistic thing, but
yeah,
you seem to like live this life of things that the things are. I'm putting this totally on you by saying this.
No.
I'm getting the impression that you like having things around you that inspire that sort of relationship you have with art.
Absolutely. Since I learned that vans were a thing, you know, you get into learning about vans. It's like, well, they toured around in a van, you know.
Yeah.
It's like, well, that thing looks pretty cool. And there's a great picture of a Motorhead back in like, golly, probably sometime in like the late 70s, early 80s. And they're standing in front of a Chevy G20 van with a big old bumper guard on it. It's all flat black, and Lemmy's just standing there cross-armed, and it's a cool-looking visual. So, you know, rock and roll, loud music, and vans, you got to have a way to get around, you know. So seeing that, it's like, oh, that's cool. And then being somewhat of a musician, starting to go out and branch out, it's like, man, I want a van, you know. It's like, you got the bed in the back, you can do this, that, and the other, load up your equipment, haul around your buddies. And so since that's what I wanted my first car to be. Unfortunately, it was a 94 Jeep Grand Cherokee, but I treated it like a van, folded down the back seat, air mattress in the back. Like, I camped out of that thing forever.
Yeah.
But finally saved up enough money and bought a high top G20 conversion van. And me and my dad, we can't leave well enough alone, so we made it 4-wheel drive. And I like drove around going to shows in this jacked up 4-wheel drive van for a while, and then I sold that one and finally got the dream I always wanted was a Chevy G10 Chevy Shorty. And so I found an old Bell South work van. You remember those? So around here in North Carolina, it was a bunch of Bell South vans, and they were always little Chevy Shorties. And they had two big yellow and blue stripes down the side, windows on one side, panel on the other. And I found one with no motor in it, no transmission, basically blew up. And it's the only vehicle I had to pressure wash from the inside out because it was like moss and all types of stuff growing in it. And I bought it for like $400 and took it home and had a motor I'd been saving, put that motor in it, put the transmission from like a 1970 C10 in it. And that's the van that's actually in your driveway right now. I drove it here. So, but, you know, and then, of course, not having a huge budget, I was like, well, I can spend about $2,000, $2,500 in body filler and paint and this, that, and the other, make it nice. Or I can spend about $200 in flapper disc, a grinder, and some clear coat and take it down to bare metal and then clear coat it. So that's what I did. And, of course, being into the heavy music, I love Mad Max, so I was like, well, if I'm going to do that, just make it into a Mad Max van. So that's my daily driver.
I love that, man.
So, you know, it all goes back into, like, the heavy music, this, that, and the other, driving around, camping with your buddies, and being in the shop, doing creative stuff. And musically, it all just recycles itself and comes out in the speakers.
I mean, I do think that it's kind of hard to avoid living a life where like other people's cars influence the way that they feel about their relationship with everything else around them, you know, or their relationship with driving around wherever they are.
Yeah.
And for a lot of people, it just happens to be that I think that's a passive thing. It's a passive mentality about how you get around.
It's more of a tool for A to B.
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of people see it that way, which is fine.
And like, it doesn't have to be creative and it doesn't have to be inspiring or whatever, but I think it's badass to take that much ownership of the aesthetic aspect, I guess, or the visual aspect, and also the personal aspect. Like, I mean, and also there's really a romantic idea about, for somebody like me who don't know shit about cars, there's a romantic idea about being able to build one, being able to put a motor in a car and all that.
It is a love-hate relationship that sometimes takes a while, but like, I mean, you know, when you care that much about it, and you go from that you know, buying just a body basically and building it up to something that you can turnkey, have confidence in, and drive every day. You know, that's a process, and you know, it is all material things. You know, the one thing I obviously care about is if friends, family. That's the biggest main thing in my life. But with all that's being said, I have a lot of automotive friends and guys that build choppers and bikes and vans and stuff. And I mean, we all can confidently say it's like putting your soul into it. And so it has its own soul. That's a part of you, because it takes that long process to do it yourself. You know, you didn't just go out to a car lot and buy it, you know, or you didn't just have a restorer do it for you. It's like, no, you took your own dime and did it, and making the best of what you have to get it on the road, which is my situation. If I wasn't buying guitars and all this other stuff, I might have been able to make it a little nicer. Might have been able to have an actual interior instead of busting up wood pallets in my driveway to put wood walls in it, you know. Right. But you know, that's the kind of stuff you can write songs about.
Exactly.
So, you know, a little bit of sweat and blood ain't nothing.
I love it, man. So what's on the horizon for your music career, do you feel like? What do you want to be on the horizon? What do you want to do?
I would love just to get in the studio more and create more that way, and the fruits of that labor come back, and the opportunities that come out of that, pursue those. I have long conversations with Brad about stuff like that. You know, he's been doing this a long time and has done it every other way you could imagine. And so, like, he's got the experience to know, hey, this works, hey, this doesn't, let's try this, let's see what happens. And me and him just talk about it. It's like, man, just creation, just creating the music, finding your audience, and going to that audience. So I'd love to get in the studio more and just create as much as possible, and then at least have some sort of, because after that, you know, you can start setting goals and things like that. But that's where I'm at. I just want to create as much as possible and put out as much as possible in the studio as far as music.
What's your relationship with the studio like? Like when you go in there now, or when you have gone in there, are you going in there with fully formed ideas, or is that a creative space for you to?
Sometimes, you know, when you book that time, I feel like it's something you shouldn't waste. So I come in there and it's like, well, be ready as possible. But with Benji Johnson over at Earth Tone Studios, I love working with him. Luckily he's a super laid back dude, and he is also super creative as well. So I would say, if you are recording, or you have somebody, like, find somebody that just is just as creative as you are. Because there's been times where I went in there and gone overtime, but we were making the song as best as it could be. And sometimes that requires a little extra steps, and sometimes that requires coming up with stuff on the fly. But that's what I love about it, because it's so fun, and it's cool to see that movie from your head come out like audio and just blast at you in the speakers. And it's like, man, what if we added this little thing? And all those little nuances that might grab someone's attention, or that grab my attention as a player and a singer. It's like, I love that process. And sometimes that, when you have a well-formed idea, I've had those just, screw it, go out the window. We got to do this now. It's like something will happen, and we go down that trail. So it's a little bit of both. I've gone in there with solid plans, and I've gone in there where plans just went out the window. And what's happening in that moment is the best for the song, and that's what we pursue.
Yeah. Where do these movies, what can you tell me about where these movies, like maybe your more recent days of any recent songs you've written, where they kind of start for you, and when you know one's happening, you know, what that's like?
I don't know. I guess it starts as basically like it could start as a riff, it could start as a lyric, and it could start as just a picture of that image in my head itself of just describing something, or, you know, just trying to get that creative thing out of my head. But a lot of times it does happen lyrically, where I'll just rattle off something in a melody. I don't even know what. And I'll just rattle off a line and a melody and go, I got to get that. I got to capture that. And a lot of times it's a starting point or a launch pad. It's like, well, I had this riff. Let's see if it'll fit with that riff. Oh, it does. Or no, it doesn't. It feels like it needs to go this direction. It needs to feel like it, so I'll have that lyric or whatever. And it's like, well, this feels like it needs to be heavy. So let me drop tune the guitar. Or this feels like it needs to be kind of fast and light. So let me figure something out. But usually it's lyrically, and I can get a lot of direction from that alone of, well, this needs to happen in order to make to go along and fit well with the lyric, So lyrically is a lot, and that, like I said, that's important to me. So when I have a line that goes, ooh, that's descriptive, it sticks out, it feels like something I want to listen to, so I try to capture it quick.
Yeah. I have the same, like, I think our intuitions are pretty similar when it comes to the spontaneity of some of those times where you have something and you just kind of throw something at the wall, see if it stays.
Yeah.
And sometimes it, like, for me, for an instinct that I tend to follow or practice I follow is like, once I have one that won't let me stop doing it,
That's it.
I always am like, all right, then you're what I'm building the song out of, whether I like it or not. I don't know what the hell it's going to be, but it'll just be some phrase that wants to be in that melody.
Yeah, and sometimes you can't break out of that. It's like, well, man, I want to go down this street. Let me see what's there. It's like, no, you need to go this direction. And it's like, and sometimes I can't, like you said, you can't break out of that.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, I guess that's and that's where the year comes from. Like, well, I didn't finish it today, man. I'll finish it tomorrow. Or maybe hopefully another line will come to me, and that perfect line, like months later when you're riding down the road or you're in the shower, you're working on this thing, it's like, God, no wonder, you idiot, you could have said this. And then I got to grab a piece of paper and write it down. Then finally that song, because like I said, it comes back to that forcing. It's like, I don't want to force it to where it feels fake, because then it feels like, well, that was just a filler line to get me to the next thing, or hopefully maybe get me to the next step. And it's like, I have a few of those moments, and that's when those filler lines sometimes they're the first thing to go when the song's kind of done. Yeah. But yeah, man, sometimes it's like you can't force it, and that's where sometimes the year wait comes in, and it's like, like I said, riding down the road, and I've slammed on brakes before. Luckily, nobody behind me, but I have literally slammed on brakes before, and I pulled in. In fact, it was on the way to Madison one time, and it was just lyrics at the time. And it was more like a poem-esque type thing. And, man, it had been raining like hell. And I was, like, going 55 down this back road. And all of a sudden, I'm just humming to myself and humming this melody, whatever. I had a set of lines, and I was just humming those lines with that melody. And I said something. I was like, da-da-da-da-da, something about a road or whatever. And I was like, that is it. And there was a church, a little white church, and I slammed on brakes. The front end locked up, and I had to let off. The front end locked up, and it was so muddy and rainy. I basically drove my van through a ditch, and it went through this huge mud puddle and splashed mud all up on the side and whatnot. And I was scrambling around inside the van. I knew I had an art pad, and because I would draw all the time. And I took a piece of nice art paper and just wham, right out of there, all jagged and ripped, and I started writing right there in that church parking lot. Luckily, it was there. I probably were glad that when I left, because I think it was Sunday service, so they probably just saw this van screeching to a halt and then pulling in his parking lot. What is this dude doing? So I wrote it down real quick, watching people get out. I was like, all right, it's time to go. Slam it, reverse, and then left. But that I did. Sometimes that happens, and when it happens, you just need to grab it and take it from there. That's is a line from one of my newest songs, and one that Brad, Mitch, and I have been working on. So that'll hopefully be out soon.
I know what you mean, man. I can't tend to keep like lyric sheets like that, and I've got a little collection of them downstairs, and not just like construction paper or cardboard, but I've written on like greasy paper plates.
Man.
You gotta grab it now. I wrote a song called San Antonio, and I remember that one. It was just like lightning bolt in my head. And I didn't have time to take 30 seconds to like try to find a piece of paper. I just had to grab a paper plate that was already on my desk and write the chorus down on there before it was gone.
It's like, man, I got this razor blade and a nice wall. I'm just going to scratch it in there. That way I can look at it and then it's there. Yeah, no, man. That's the worst. Or the worst is to have that and then not have one damn pen that writes.
Right.
I can't tell you how many times I've done that in a damn cheap ass ballpoint pen. That's why I always carry nice art pens with me.
Mm-hmm.
I will use an art pen till the day I die to write a song. It's all nice and whatever looking, but man, I'll use it.
I'll ask you a kind of open-ended question. Are you in control of songs that you write?
That's a good question. I think you are and you're not, or at least for me, I am, but I'm not at the same time, because that window of time to capture it sometimes doesn't feel like you know. But I think you ultimately, the song tells you where to go. So, you know, I think you listen to the song and you contribute as much as you personally can to your best ability to the song, but that's when that year wait sometimes comes in. It's like, what's going to be the best for it, or what's it got to be? So I think it's a little bit of both. It's the song telling you where to go and you contributing as much as you can to the song to get it there.
Yeah. That's another piece of mentality, I guess, from the Rubin book that I appreciate a lot, is the idea of being a vessel for the thing that tells stories. And maybe that's true. Maybe we're more than that. I don't know how to understand it, but I've noticed that the less control I try to have over songs, it seems like the more productive it is. The more they happen. Yeah.
The more restraint you put on yourself, the more roadblocks you put for yourself, I think it limits anything coming at you, because you never know, because you don't want to say, well, it sounds like this, so I think I need to keep it this way or whatever. You want to be as open as possible, because, man, something will come out of the blue that you would have never thought of, or whatever. Or you want to be as open-minded as possible. Like for me, again, driving down the road, you'll see something, and it's like, I would have never thought that it would inspire me to write that one quick thing, you know?
Well, that's what's so bizarre, is like, you think of it, but it's a different part of you than the busy part. You know, it's like there's this part that we're always. That it's like Sam Harris was talking about how when we meditate or when we observe ourselves, it's kind of like there's two people in us, and one of us is looking at us, but they're both us. And it's kind of that. It's like it's that second part of you that tells you about these awesome ideas, and then you're like, okay, and you like obey them or whatever. But it's hard to account for what that thing is.
Like, it is, yeah. I think that's what everybody through years and years have tried to put down on paper to make other people understand. And I think it's everybody, and that's the cool thing about people, is everybody's individual, everybody's different, and those voices or whatever that is in everybody's head is so different, and it's just cool to see talk to other creative people and be like, well, what's that voice like for you? Well, it's movies in my head. Well, what's that voice like for you? Well, it's like Uncle Jesse from Dukes of Hazzard handing me a banjo can and telling me to play. You know, it's like, it's different for everybody. And that's so cool, because you can take a lot from people. I mean, you listen, you observe, and you can take a lot away from people if you listen to observe and listen to the right things. You know?
Observing is a big part of it, man. That to me is a huge part of creativity, is just having your eyes open to everything around you as often as possible. Yeah. You said something else interesting that I'd like to ask about. You talked about the importance, I guess, for you of family and friends. Yeah. And I got the sense today from your clan that like
from my tribe.
Yeah, it's a seriously meaningful thing. Like in a way that's like kind of nice to see. You know, that's kind of cool. And I wondered, I don't know, you can just elaborate on that, I guess, just like why that's been important to your creative journey.
Well, I don't know. I've always, like, I was homeschooled, so I was just around my family a lot. And with that being homeschooled, I got to do the things that interest me. So I got to build up on my own self and I guess my own character and stuff like that. But as far as like family and stuff, we've always done everything as a family, whether it be like the business, like the antique mall I mentioned, or it was racing with my dad. Like that was a whole family oriented thing. Like I remember racing with my great granddad, who at the time, so I have memories of things like that, where racing with my great granddad, my granddad, and I was fortunate now looking back, you're a kid, you don't know, so you're just like, well, this is just my life. This is what's normal.
Right.
But looking back, it's like I feel so fortunate to be able to do that, because there's a lot of people that don't even know their grandparents or never met their grandparents. So I got to meet my great granddad, and not only do that, but do things that interest me and do things with the family with him. So it's since I was young, family definitely been important. And so with that, like material things, it's for me, it's just that's out the window. They're important to me, obviously, but I mean, it's like, something could happen to my van tomorrow or whatever. It's like, well, all right, was my friends okay? Is my mom okay? Is everybody good? Cool. That's all I need.
Yeah.
That's fine. Did I lose half my guitars? Great. Whatever. Is everybody cool? All right, we keep trucking. So that, whether it be we have a family business, because everything. I mean, it's a big family discussion whether we buy a vehicle or not sometimes. It's like, hey, everybody good with this? We like this? It's like, all right, cool. Well, all right, well, I'm getting the money tomorrow. I'm got the trailer. We're all going to go and pick it up. And it's like, I've always been around. That's been situational things for ever since I was little. So that, and then, the friend group, you grow up as kids and whatnot, and through your teens, you kind of realize, well, that guy wasn't really my friend, or this, that, and the other.
Yeah.
And you learn real quick who your friends are, especially if you own and operate your own business, or you pursue something like music that is, you have your own thing going on. You really learn real quick, and man, all I can say is the friends that stick around and support you and that love you and that will show up for you, those are the people that you need to keep around like all the time. And luckily, with where I am at now, every friend I've got now, I know I could call, I could be on the side of the road or have a situation going on, and I know they'll be there. Like, and that's the kind of people I want sticking around me all the time in my corner,
Mm-hmm.
So friends and family are a huge deal. And
hell yeah.
I got good ones.
That's badass. I love it. Cool. So what are some of the big moments for you so far since you started doing this whole music life thing? And
oh gosh,
anything that stands out to you is just like a moment where you were like, shit is going okay.
It's all right. Oh man, it's ups and downs like anything. But I mean, I don't know. There's a lot of little moments like that. I think that is with anything you don't want to take for granted, because there are a lot of little moments that happen that are big deals.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it be recording your first time or opening up for that first big act, or meeting that right person at the right time kind of deal. I don't know. That's kind of hard to pinpoint.
Yeah.
Because it always seems like just one big blob sometimes. Because as you imagine, driving from town to town, and it's just like, well, how was the shows? Well, I guess they were all right. Yeah, I don't remember half of them, but yeah, they were all right. So that's kind of hard to pinpoint, because it just feels like it's something that's nonstop.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as big moments, I mean, it's got to be obviously playing my family's first, the Power and Sound Festival, the big festival we put on. I mean, stepping up on stage and looking out and seeing not only familiar faces, but the people that we all drove into this thing. It was like, oh my gosh, it worked. I can't believe it worked. And then not only did it work again. And then stepping out on stage and seeing twice that many people and going, holy shit, it's working. That's a big moment. So there's moments like that in the music where it's like, I'm playing a festival that my mom and sister put on and has worked so hard to do, and just seeing the fruits of the labor kind of thing, and being a part of it, So that's probably some of the biggest things that stick out.
That's amazing. Yeah.
Stuff.
Yeah. I mean, that's got to be interesting for you as a musician, like this platform that your family is inventing.
Yeah.
It's like, this is amazing.
This is incredible. This is a great one. I just thought of it. It's, we had the Steelwoods headlining last year, and the way the property is, it's a hill behind the stage that you have a gravel road that goes behind the stage. Well, they showed up with a big trailer and tour bus, as Steelwoods would do. It's like, well, how are we going to get the equipment from this trailer up in this parking lot down on this tiny road to the stage? It's like, well, we got to get a golf cart, trailers, this, that, and the other. So I am like, with that good friend group I mentioned, the half of the van club that I'm with and all my good buddies, this, that, and the other, we're up there literally heaving Steelwood's equipment onto a golf cart trailer, loading it down, taking it up. And man, of course, Steelwood's played, killed it. And then there's Steelwood's tour manager, like right there. He's commanding like me and all my friends, like, all right, guys, we got to do this, that, and the other. We got to load this up. And we're loading thousands of dollars of equipment onto a tiny golf cart trailer. And like, those are moments that stick out that are musical, but it's like, those are moments in time that I like to go back and refer to if I'm writing a song or something too. So I just remember just me and all my buddies at 2:00 in the morning, after the festival's way over and ended, everybody's tired. We're looking at this Steelwood's equipment, loading it up, and like we're tearing down the sound stage ourselves, you know. So that was pretty cool. That was another big musical world thing that I will never forget.
Well, you just said something that's real accurate. It's memorable moments and how we use those to kind of in the writing process. And novelists do the same thing, and it's like, why? And like how?
Yeah.
You know, I was in Louisville yesterday, and there was like a whole scrapbook place, and like some people just scrapbook instead, and it's a little simpler.
It is a little simpler.
Like you know, I wonder if you can talk it a little bit. I won't keep you much longer, but I wonder if you can talk a little bit about sort of how that works, the impetus to kind of when you notice there's a moment like that.
Yeah.
Maybe you can talk a little about this. Maybe you can talk about what it feels like when you notice that you're in one of those moments that you're just like it's imprinted on your memory in a way where you're like, this is part of the reserve now.
Right. Yeah. Well, I think my dad said it best. You never remember the times that went smooth. You always remember the times when shit fucked up. Man, I can tell you as many van trips, motorcycle trips and stuff with buddies and vans, and just I can tell you so many times of shows and things and from Power and Sound, and like you never remember when things went smooth.
Yep.
Your brain's at idle, man. It's like, all right, everything's going good, I'm not worried. When shit starts hitting the fan, that's what you remember. And that's the snapshot moments of things in time that like sometimes I will never forget. But and me and a friend were talking about this another day. You know, sometimes moments are the best moments in the world, like when everything went absolutely 100% right and you feel really good or whatever. And I remember we were both coming in, we were at my house, and we had all the van club in the backyard and this, that, and the other camping out. And it was Mom and the kid. We have this garage, and through that is a glass door. And in the kitchen was all my friends from the van club, some people from Power and Sound, like we were all doing that kind of stuff too. And Mom was like cooking some sort of dinner for that night or whatever. And me and my buddy were just standing in the garage, and he was like, "Hey, this is one of those snapshot moments." Like that's what we were talking about that day. He's like, and we were just looking through the door and just like that perfect like painting of a good time or like that perfect moment. Like those are things that like the slightest of moment. It was milliseconds, but just everybody having a good time. You're looking through this glass door in a garage, and it's like that's one of the moments I'll never forget. And so when you're around those things like that, that's important to me. And that, of course, back into songwriting, and you just try to capture that and display that to people. You know,
that's right. And sometimes you take those moments. Well, it depends. Some people might not, but what I sometimes do with those moments is I notice it, and I don't know why, but it develops into the story that creates a context for that appreciation or something. Yeah. Like, it's interesting how it shifts into the world of story, but I'll give you one example. I was playing New Year's Eve at a bar. A bunch of friends were there. This girl, I was dating a girl at the time, and this girl walked up to me and was like, "You didn't kiss me for New Year's Eve or something."
Oh, what?
And I was like, "Oh, this just got weird." And I felt like very awkward about it.
Yeah.
So then I was like, hey, this is my girlfriend. And
There you go.
and
Yeah.
introduced her, and she was like, oh shit, sorry, I didn't mean it like that. Like I'm like somebody who doesn't. I'm not hooking up with any of these musicians.
Yeah. I don't.
And so, but then somehow that evolved into like, what is it? How do you tell a story about somebody who feels ashamed of a kiss at New Year's? And that's what the song became. Instead of like the exact experience, it became this other thing of like this whole love story of, it's called Evening Gown. And it's like this love story almost of like reflecting on like, how did it happen that we were ashamed of kissing each other or something.
Yeah. And there's moments like you pull from that moment and stuff. And then you see like, you might watch a TV show or something or whatever. You pull from other moments and experiences that wound up in this one whole story to create.
Yeah.
Like the one story. I like songs like that too. I love when stuff like that happens.
Do you have a favorite song of yours?
Oh gosh.
Well, when I say that, do you have a song of yours that is one of your favorites right now?
Right now, there we go. That's the question.
Yeah. More fair. Yeah.
I think right now, I think that would be one. I think it's one I wrote called Fairy Tale, or Fairy Tales, and that one's more talking about just how life will knock you on your ass kind of thing, and not everything is on a silver spoon, and you just gotta grind and work hard and things like that. So it's talking about just how, I'm trying to remember the line in the chorus. I got to sing it to myself to remember. But
you got to get the movie rolling.
Exactly. Yeah. I got to refer to the movie. There's a line in it that in the chorus that comes around, and it says, "Thank you, Lord, for making my life a living hell, because you can't make a man if you give him a fairy tale." So
damn,
it's just about just how life is just. It may suck in the moment no matter what you're going through, or those shitty moments that you'll remember for the rest of your life, but it's the things that develop your character or your work ethic, or those type of things that contribute to when you stand there and look back. It's like, I made it through that. It's like, I'm tougher now, or I know how to approach this now. So it's just about those moments in life that just absolutely gut punch you.
I noticed, like when I was thinking about Evening Gown, that's what I noticed. It is moments that are like a weird mental challenge.
Yeah,
like,
it's like an obstacle course. How am I going to do this?
Yeah. It's almost like those stories teach you parts of how you hypothetically could or would, or how other people should.
Right, yeah.
Other kinds of things. Yeah, songs are just really interesting little mysteries,
Yeah.
Since we've been talking about festivals so much, I just got to ask you this. I don't know why. Same as songwriting. It's in my head. I have to ask you. If you were organizing a 2-day festival, you were headlining Saturday, obviously. Like you're the headliner. But who else would you want?
Oh.
Who else would you want on this festival?
Oh my gosh, what a question.
This
is going to be a wild ass festival, I can tell you that.
Wouldn't have it any other way.
I mean, it would be great to have somebody like freaking Blackberry Smoke, and then somebody like Charlie Crockett, and then for me, then somebody like Truck Fighters, The Sword, King Buffalo. Golly, who else? Who would close the night? I don't know, man. That would be tough. That is so tough. But it would be. I can tell you that it would be the weirdest assortment of people in that crowd, because I'm gonna have. Oh my gosh, I'd have, like I said, Blackberry Smoke. Oh my gosh, I'm trying to think. Now I'm just picturing my Spotify playlist, and then when that's on shuffle, shit gets wild. Because you may go from Hank Williams to freaking The Sword, where it's just dun da da dun da dun.
Yeah,
got big drum sounds and everything. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. With my music taste now, it would be this southern folky thing mixed with just heavy cosmic sounding stuff.
I love that heaviness is a part of your whole taste. I think that's so interesting.
Dude, a baritone guitar, B standard. Oh man, a good friend, Sam Foster, for my birthday, he bought me a baritone guitar in the Whiskey Foxtrot times, and we had a few songs that we could incorporate baritone on. And man, it's one of those things where when you have that song, it's like, all right, is this gonna work out on the 6-string? No, and I'll look over at that baritone, and I'm like, all right, and then pedals on, big old amp, and it's like, this works. And it's like, so it just goes that direction. But yeah, I mean, that baritone, that thing is become my baby, and learning about those, getting into those bands and learning about those alternate tunings. Like, the bass player, his top string is tuned to a C. Mm-hmm. Like he's chunking on that thing, or no, they're tuned like a full step down. Like you need to get a compressor pedal and squish that thing in a big muff and a Fender Bassman or an orange amp and turn it all the way up to 12. But yeah, so it'd be bands like that where orange amps and some sort of smoke is going through the crowd. And then, somebody like Paul Cawthon and Charlie Crockett are up next. And then Tyler Childers and Billy Strings.
Hey, Billy would be a good one to close
There we
tonight.
go. Oh, Billy, yeah. He'd get everybody, after everybody's all pumped up, and then he'd close the night out and smooth everything out.
Yeah.
That's the perfect festival. But with the things that would be floating around there, it'd probably last a week. It's like, we're still here? Yeah, man.
I love it. I have to ask about the van club. What do you guys do?
Oh, what don't we do?
Do you know about Trog?
That sounds, what's that?
The race of gentlemen?
Yeah. Where they take the old bikes and the old A model bodies and stuff and race on the beach.
Yeah.
And stuff. That's some cool stuff.
Yeah, I think
that stuff.
I'm trying to go to that this year.
You
actually.
will have a blast there. That's one thing I've always wanted to do is go there and see that, because that's some old school technology and old school ways of racing. Like people think like those cars, it's like they were racing those cars like that in that time. Like, no, that's some 50s and 60s stuff. So you're seeing those teenagers and like the 20-year-olds that had $200 in their pocket buying a cheap old car from the 30s, flathead V8, and revving it up to $3,000 or however that little flathead could go, and just ripping around town and racing people. The American Graffiti type stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, that Race of Gentlemen, that's that's badass stuff.
I'm excited about it. I'm trying to make a little tour out of it, so I'm seeing how that works out. But I mean, do y'all like travel with the vans and just kind of
we do
shit like that?
We've worked with the arts and trades. We've actually put on a thing at Lucky City Brewing in Reedsville, and teamed up. Of course, most of the friends are with Power and Sound, and we say that Power and Sound Revival is our if you're in the club, that's your one commitment. That's the one thing you have to do. So you got to bring up, show out to Power and Sound. And there's other events later on this year. Heavy in the Holler, put on by Renegade Vans, that we're going out to in Irwin, Tennessee. Let's see, what else events are we going to? I think there's talks about Smoky Mountain Chopper Fest, and then there's talks about Backroad Barbecue Run, and a few other ones. But
I wouldn't mind some barbecue right about now.
there we go. Yeah, I'm starting to get hungry myself. But we it's really that core group of friends I was talking about earlier. The guy I started the van club with, Brandon Finney, he bought a bubble window from me to put on the side of his van. I had an extra one at Power and Sound, and we met at the first one. And he had a van, I had the van, and we just got to talking and become real good friends. And my other friends got vans, and we just looked around and go, well, shoot, we're a van club now. So we got Foggy Mountain Van Club. You can check us out on Instagram and all that stuff. But you see us floating around, come on and say hi. But it's really just, it's nothing like hardcore, whatever. It's just literally a group of friends that have vans, and we go and camp out. We'll have the best time in a parking lot you could ever had, or best time in a field or whatever. We camped last night at where was it? Blissful Ridge in Reedsville, and we were just chilling out on this hillside, all camped out in our vans, grilling and
I love it.
having a good time.
Yeah, that sounds like a blast, man.
Yeah, man.
Well, I'm not going to keep you longer. I want to make sure that those who are listening have a chance to check out everything wherever they should.
Yeah.
If you'd like to just mention what your website is and all that shit.
JSWmusicNC.com. You can check out JSWmusic_NC on Instagram, and also JSWArt_NC. That's more my personal one on Instagram. Any music platforms, just type in Seth Williams, you'll find me. I've had recent singles come out, and so you can check those new singles out, and recording right now, so be on the lookout for that kind of stuff. And the biggest thing this year I'm playing is definitely Power and Sound Revival. So
yeah.
May 19th and 20th, y'all come out to Power and Sound, bring your ride if you got one. If you don't, buy one, fix it up, and come on and show it out. So it'll be a good time.
I'm going to try to push this hard, and I hope some people will seriously go to it. And I can say from seeing you perform, I really enjoy what you do.
Thank you,
and I've
man.
really
Thank
enjoyed the opportunity to like learn more about your perspective as an artist. Exactly as I thought. I feel like we all understand each other in some kind of unspoken way. So
Yeah, it is. It's an unspoken bond between musicians, especially ones you connect with. That it just clicks, man. Sometimes.
Yeah. Same with when I met Bo. It's just like, yep, y'all are my people. So
That's it, man.
Yeah. Well, seriously, thank you for your time, man.
Man, thank you for having me. This has been awesome.
All right.